Hello, everyone, and welcome. If we are here, that means that we finished reading a book, so we are ready now for the review. And the book that we just read is. You have to give it to me. This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. I had kind of a blast reading this. I read this really quickly, which is not normal for me at all because I am the world's slowest reader. This starts out at a funeral. And the main character's name is Thiago, and he was married to a woman. I believe they were married. I'm mostly certain that they were. I got a memory like a goldfish. And so we're actually starting at her funeral. And one of the things that he talks about is when when your spouse has passed away and there's a bunch of people in the room with you, you can still feel very lonely. And I know that I get that too. Being an introvert, I have felt very lonely in a room full of people. What we get a lot of is like flashbacks of what got us to the funeral. So they had moved into a new condo, Thiago and Vera, and they have this little thing in their house. In the book, it's called an Itza, but it's kind of like an Alexa or the Google Home speaker thing. And just here's your fun fact. Someone bought me one of those as a housewarming present. What was it for me and my husband? And we never opened the box, didn't even plug it in. I'm way too much of a conspiracy theorist to plug something like that into my house. It's bad enough that I have you listening to me. I don't want anything else listening to me. I don't need any more weird things listening to me in my house. So it starts very simply with kind of like some weird scratches in the wall. And this story takes place in Chicago. So it's like, okay, there's a rat in the walls. So they have an exterminator come, they look, well, they can't find any evidence of rats in the walls, but he says that they could spray for them and he put out the poison anyway. A bunch of other weird things keep happening, like Itza keeps like placing orders for them for stuff and they get like a bunch of weird stuff in. There was like a thing that you might buy for two married people. I can't say the word because it's not algorithm friendly, but imagine a thing that two married people would use together, or a single person could use it by themselves. And that's what it is. There is an order placed for industrial strength lye. And that's kind of where it all started, is these little things. And then they start noticing like this presence in the house, which is also a little bit weird because there's nothing creepier than thinking that there's someone in your house. And as old as my house is, I would be more surprised if someone hadn't expired in here because this house was built in 1865. But so far we've not had anything kooky happen. So it's enough things that have happened that Vera's like, we need to talk to the listing agent. We need to see if we can find the person who lived here before. So they are able to kind of strong arm that information out of the listing agent. Before they're able to go talk to her is when the accident happens and Vera passes away. And what had happened was someone ran into her when she was coming up from the subway and she fell. So it was an accident. But the person that caused her to fall did get arrested, and it was this whole thing. There was a trial and a bunch of media attention that Thiago, at this point in his life, he just really didn't want, and I totally get that. After Vera has passed away and they've had the funeral, he realizes, well, we never really went and spoke to this woman who lived here before, and I think I should go talk to her. So he goes, and Thiago I don't think it straight up says, but I think he's Hispanic of some kind because he talks about how he can only understand a little bit of Spanish and he was not. I'm pretty sure, I don't want to say without being absolutely sure, I'm mostly certain that one or both of his parents were Mexican. I don't remember. And he talked about how he kind of never felt completely Mexican because he didn't understand Spanish that well. So the woman who lived there before is able to kind of get him to understand what it is. And he just decides, whatever this is, I don't want to live here anymore. So there was a life insurance policy, which he has gotten some money from. So he decides, you know what? I'm just going to move away. I'm going to move away. I very much would like to move away from here, but we're all stuck with each other. Well, if you would stop opening all of the drawers on the bottom shelves, then maybe you wouldn't have to stay in there. But you did that to yourself. Anyhow, so he decides he wants to move somewhere to be alone. And he decides to move to a little secluded cabin up in the mountains of Colorado. A man after my own heart, because I have always said I would love to own 100 acres of property with a little cabin smack dab in the middle and a 10-foot wall around the whole thing. I don't think I don't need to interact with other people to be happy and fulfilled in my life. So anyway, so he's driving and he ends up pulling off of the road. He is mainly just going to kind of stop and ask for directions. So he stops at this little diner. There's a guy there, and Thiago can kind of tell that he's getting ready to close down. So he goes in, he talks to the guy, and he's like, hey, I'm looking, where do I go? So he gets the directions, and then the guy that runs the diner they kind of chit chat, and he tells him a little bit about himself, and he ends up making Thiago milkshake. So then Thiago leaves, and this is another one of those like weird things that I'm not sure if it actually happened or if he just all imagined it. So he's driving, and if you've ever driven on one of those long mountain roads in the dark, there's like no street lights. It's nothing. You have your headlights and your tail lights. So he looks up in the rearview mirror and he swears he sees the guy from the diner chasing his car on all fours. That's a little weird, but that is one of those things, like I said, I'm not sure if that actually happened or if it was all from sleep deprivation and lack of caffeine. He's now gone to this place in Colorado that he evidently bought just sight unseen. All he told the listing agent was, I just want a place out of the way, away from everybody. So he buys this little cabin and he goes up there and he ends up spending the first night there fairly uneventful. The second night he goes into town and there's a stray dog that he meets there while he's going to the hardware store to pick up some things, and he decides, well, I guess I'm just going to take this dog home to see what I can find. So he takes the dog to the vet and, he asked about, maybe taking him to the shelter, but he doesn't want the dog to get put down if he doesn't get adopted at the shelter. So he just decides, I'm going to keep this dog. And it was a St. Bernard, which I think is our little guy on the cover here, there in the very, very center. It's Thiago and this dog. He lets the dog out. And of course, dogs being dogs, it goes off into the woods. So then he goes after the dog. And Thiago describes it as a wall, but the way it's described, it's more like and his mother-in-law describes it as like a Stonehenge, but I'm just seeing like a tall stone, like a monolith is what I called it. It's what I put in my notes, is this monolith. As he's kind of figuring out how to live by himself, he's going to do some work around the property. And this didn't make really any sense to me. So the dog finds this thing at the edge of the property and it like sprays some kind of poison into the dog's face. So he rushes the dog back to the vet and the vet's like, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. We couldn't save him. And then he said, those were put there by the Department of Wildlife to manage the coyote population. I really don't think that the Department of Wildlife would do that. Believe me, if I had a hose that could spray poison all over these creepy creatures that have invaded my home, I would. And you would all be buried in the backyard. That's enough out of you, smart guy. So that seemed a little weird to me. I just can't see the Department of Wildlife doing something like that, like putting poison out for coyotes, because anything could have gotten into them. And that seemed a little bit strange to me. I could be completely wrong about that, though. I don't know. I don't work for the Department of Wildlife. Anyways, so it's the middle of winter. He goes to the hardware store and is talking to the girl at the hardware store. Is like, I need to bury my dog. So she goes around, gives him everything that he needs, because apparently what you have to do is like set a fire on top, because like winter in Kentucky gets cold, but in Colorado, like the winter is different. So he has to set a fire to soften the ground so he's able to like dig the grave. So he goes home, he does all of the things, he buries the dog. The next morning he wakes up and that monolith has just appeared in front of this dog's grave. It's really strange. So he decides that this is probably a bad thing and decides he wants to try to set it on fire. Well, that doesn't work. So then he decides he's going to drive his truck into it. And as he's driving his truck into it, it just vanishes. And then he ends up going into a tree with his truck. But here's the crazy thing. The next morning, he wakes up. The dog has come back to life. He thinks it's weird. He takes the dog back to the vet to have it checked out. And nobody can really explain because it is the exact same dog, looks exactly the same. Thiago thinks, okay, maybe he wasn't actually dead, because that actually happened to my cousin. They had a dog that they thought was dead. They had dug a hole and were getting ready to dump him in it. And he just like sat up like, hey guys, what's going on? It happens. Now as he's sitting in the house with his dog, books start to come off of the shelves. The words in the books are changing. And of course, naturally, in this grieving state, he assumes that Vera is trying to talk to him. She keeps saying, I hesitate to say she, but the entity is saying, pull me out of the wall. Now, we don't know what that means, but the wall is what Thiago he calls this monolith. Yeah, he calls it the wall. I called it a monolith because that's kind of what it seemed like it was to me. And here is the thing. Don't ever try to commune with spirits because you have no idea who you might be talking to. That's just generally good advice. Don't do that. So the monolith has come back, and he has made this connection of this monolith has brought this dog back to life. Can it do the same thing for my wife? So he gets in his suitcase, because one of the things that he keeps talking about is where he finds Vera's hair everywhere. And if you have hair of any length, it's everywhere. I don't think that you have hair. No, I'm pretty sure you've got fur. I mean, it's lovely, regardless. But you don't have hair. I'm sorry. You don't have hair, you do not have feet. And that just is how it is. Boy, these creatures are going to be the end of me. He starts going through his suitcase. And at first I'm like, what is he looking for? And he found inside one of his shirts a strand of Vera's hair. So he rolls it up into a little ball and he walks outside. And right in front of this monolith, like the ground just opens up. So he's standing there. He's out there. The dog is out there and he's conflicted. And I don't know if you want to call it a mirage, but where the monolith is showing him what happened the day that Vera died. And he decides at this point, okay, if this was really Vera, that's not what she would have chosen to show me. He chooses not to put the hair in the grave. Instead, he swallows it. I don't know the reasoning behind that. I guess he didn't accidentally want it to fall in there. So at this point, the dog goes just pet cemetery, decides it's going to attack Thiago. And so he's fighting off this dog and he's running through the house trying to get away from this dog. And then who pulls up out in front of his house but his mother-in-law, because they had a conversation, because she was like, have you met somebody up there? And he's like, you can fly up here and see if you wanted. I don't think he actually intended for her to come, but she just shows up. So they end up being able to trap the dog in Thiago's truck. They get in the Uber takes them to the hospital. They've decided, well, we're not going to go back to that house tonight. And they decided they're going to stay in a hotel. As they are leaving the hospital going to the hotel, they notice a lot of police activity outside the vet's office, where the sheriff's department came and took care of the rabid dog, took it to the vet's office, I guess, to run tests or something. I don't generally know what happens. I don't know if I would take you to a veterinarian or not. I really don't know what I would do. My instinct is to call a priest. You know what? I have no idea. I don't even know what you are. You just showed up one day. Anyhow, they decide to stop because it's the vet's office. And so Thiago's like, what's going on in there? because the vet has been really nice to him this whole time. From what one of the crime scene technicians tells him, the vet is missing. Like, his wife has reported him missing because he didn't come home. And from what I can glean from what he's getting, these little bits of information from the sheriff and stuff, the dog just exploded or something, because apparently there's like viscera everywhere. So we're really not sure what happened. Although what I'm thinking is whatever is haunting Thiago was in that dog. They go decide we're just gonna go to a hotel. We're not gonna stay there. Diane, who was Vera's mother, so this was Thiago's mother-in-law, as they're talking, Thiago acknowledges that it most likely was not Vera that was speaking to him through the books. It was this entity that he believes to be trapped in the wall that wants to come over to this side for some reason. What it is, we still don't know. Something that they kept bringing up, and I'm probably not saying this right, Chuche? I don't speak Spanish. But I had to look that up, and it was like a boogeyman. How do you know that? You rush the same fraternity as Chuche, or I'm probably not saying that correctly. No, absolutely not. He cannot come and crash on our couch. I do not care if it's just temporary between you and Hand and the possessed mannequin. I have enough creatures in my house. Thank you. At this point, Thiago is like, he's really going through it. He's like, do I just end this all? Which I can't say the S word because it's not algorithm friendly, but that is never the answer, and there is help out there. Diane has just talked him out of that completely and says that they need to go back to the cabin, and whatever this entity is, they need to confront it. So Diane starts making a bunch of phone calls, trying to figure out what kind of a banishing ritual that they need to do. So they're going all over the place to get the stuff. And one of the things that they have to get is holy water. They find a church, and she takes a water bottle and dunks it in the fountain and gets it. I'm not Catholic either. Is the holy water not there for people just to use what they need? I don't know. I guess I just assumed that if you needed the holy water, you could go in there and get it. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. If I thought holy water would work, I would have done that already. I would have hosed the whole place down. They've gotten all this stuff. They go and they get started with this ritual. And guess who appears outside of Thiago's house? The veterinarian, or whatever has taken over the veterinarian. Here is something interesting. We got all the way to page 197 before anyone brought up that this might be a demon. That was my first thought, was somebody has got a demon. The veterinarian, I cannot remember what his name is. I just put the vet in my notes. Manages to break into the house. So he's there, and good for Diane, because one of the things that they bought is a and so she decides to him, the vet, while Thiago is talking to him, and it is the weirdest thing. It opens up like a black hole, and Diane has gotten partially sucked into it. So Thiago manages to pull her out, and they run out of the house. Diane's not looking good. Like, apparently her whole arm is messed up from being in there. It's almost kind of like frostbite, the way he describes it. Like, it was, I guess it's cold in a black hole. I don't know anything about space either. I'm not a scientist. So they're out of the house. Diane has called 911 before she pulled the trigger. They're on their way. So when they're out of the house, the vet comes up behind Thiago and hits him with a shovel. And then it proceeds to drag him to this grave that's now open in front of the monolith, and tosses him in there and just starts piling the dirt on top of him. The way Thiago was describing it, he almost described it like he was sinking into an ocean, because he said he could see bubbles. That's weird. And then he just decided he's going to start swimming. So he's swimming, and he can see up this little hole of light at the top. So he's swimming up, and he actually manages to, what now I believe he was just digging himself out of the grave. The police are there. The vet is lying on the ground. He's dead. I'm assuming he's dead. This demon was trying to get to Thiago. For some reason, it wants him. And Diane didn't make it. And we also, when they were at the hotel, there was a person that had come to their door that they called the front desk, and they sent security, and security chased him off, and they could see these muddy footprints. It took me to page 218 before I realized that that was the vet that had been outside their hotel. I have a hard time understanding things sometimes. Anyways, so Thiago has decided, you know what? I'm going to go to Mexico. I'm going to leave. I'm just going to get out of here. I'm going to go to Mexico. I'm going to live off the rest of this life insurance and live in peace. And I don't remember exactly what had happened, but somehow he ended up, I don't remember if he got into a fight or if he fell, but a bunch of his teeth got broken. So he goes to the dentist to get his teeth fixed. He sees Diane singing in an alley before this happens. Okay, I think it's coming back. I'm pretty sure he fell and hit his mouth on the concrete. And as he's going in under anesthesia, it's like this weird dinner party in this state of anesthesia. And it's like his dad is there, his mom is there, Diane, and apparently Vera is there waiting for him. And also the guy from the diner is there, which is weird because he was just kind of a cursory character. He comes out of the anesthesia, and it's at this point he's booked a flight to Mexico, but I've got a feeling at this point that he's not going to make that flight. And at this point, I am wondering, what does this demon want? What does it want? Because generally, when a demon possesses someone, it's because they want something. I don't know. But no one has really actually said what it wants and why does it keep showing him these things from his past. Who knows? Now we get into a part where it's giving Interstellar. If you've not seen that movie, you should watch it. It's a great movie. Because he sees himself in the hallway in their condo, but he's seeing himself. One of the things that he does is that he decides he's going to go talk to this kid that accidentally killed Vera. And he asks him, why did you turn around? Because he had said that he saw somebody, he heard someone call his name, and he turned around, and that was when he ran into Vera and knocked her down the steps. The kid tells Thiago, it was you. So there's like some overlapping timelines going on here. Like stuff got real wild there at the end. It ends up, there is also, this is like the 6th book that I've read almost in a row that has had some kind of an underlying breaking family trauma. So I don't know what that says about. But I've read a lot of books within these last few months that are about breaking the cycles of trauma. I think that he actually did end up doing the S word that I can't say because of the algorithm. I think what had happened from the very beginning, I think that Thiago was slowly getting possessed by this demon, and we just, the shift was like so gradual, we didn't notice it until the end and when everything started to go completely and totally bananas. I'm also pretty sure that this gave me like a weird dream because I remember seeing like the cartoon ghost with a sheet, and I remember making a noise in that dream and my husband elbowing me because that's like a thing that we do because I get sleep paralysis too. So he knows if I make a weird noise in my sleep to just nudge me so that I roll over onto my side. So I'm pretty sure this book gave me a weird dream. But this was a great read. Like I said, I read this in very little time, which is not like me at all. I really enjoyed it. It was not really even a slow burn. It was like it took, for me anyway, it took off from the very beginning. If you like stuff that goes a little bit loopy and bananas at the end, well, this is the book for you. And if you want to see what we're reading next, then you'll need to follow me on my socials. You can find all those in my bio, in the link, in the description below is where you'll find the link, and you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, you'll want to subscribe here if you want more of me and the critters' sparkling personalities. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.